is Fred McRae. I guess my qualifications are for the last 37 years. I've served the state of California in many areas like DMV, telecommunications, state police, CHP, and also Department of Corrections in the public safety area. 30 of those 37 years, 22 of those years have been as a hiring manager. And so our agenda for today, and just to give you a quick note, and I'll probably have some information at the end there if we have time, is I'm with Job One, who meets on Mondays, and we have the Zoom ID number there. We use Zoom to contact and present different topics. We have about 14 different ones. So just a quick note to that. And so the agenda today is going to be learning a little bit more about the state of California. And then we'll get into the three different steps. First of all, setting up your account. The second one will be state civil service exams and what they look like on the website. And then thirdly, search and apply for different state jobs. And they have some very effective search tools for doing that in the career that you want to get into. And then Sarah, or I guess Janice, will be monitoring the chat. So at the appropriate time and slide, she'll kind of break in and remind me there's a question, and I'll try to answer it at that particular time. All right. So, state of California manages about 150 different departments and agencies in 58 different counties. There's about 238,000 state jobs or employees working for it, and serves about 40 million residents in California. Of those, about 4,500 different job titles, or what I call classifications, that are utilized throughout the state of California in the government. Many of the jobs are here in Sacramento, but there are also other jobs available too. On the average, there's usually about 15 to about 1,600 job vacancies that are announced per month in the calcareers.ca.gov. Most of those, as I mentioned, are in Sacramento, but don't discount Yolo County because that's West Sacramento. And there's plenty of state jobs over on the other side of the river. All right. The state employees do have health benefits, dental, and vision care benefits. That adds up to about 20% of your income that the state pays for. You do pay a portion of that, but the state also chips in a certain amount. California Public Employees Retirement System is one of the best I've found in the world. When I was thinking about retiring in 2011, at that time, because of the economy, it was about $250 billion strong. And I just took a look yesterday, and they're now $470 billion strong, where many state agency retirement systems are falling through the cracks. State of California has a very good retirement system, and it's pretty secure. We also contribute into Social Security for benefits, and at 65 you can also declare Medicare benefits. And then if you work for the state for 5 years and at age 55, you can retire. For myself, I retired at 63 years old with 37 years state service time, and that's about 86% of my work income that I was getting before. Social Security stops, and so you get a little bit more money there. So there's a lot of benefits to working for the state of California. My two brothers initially ridiculed me for working for the state of California, and they suddenly realized that after being laid off from private sector for 2 or 3 times, they decided to work for the state. So they worked for 10 years Both of them retired at 61 years old, and they received $1,000 per month. That doesn't seem like much, but uh, considering they didn't work for the state for very long, that's not bad. Um, the state of California also has different job titles that you can qualify for based on your education. For instance, if you have a graduate from high school or GED, you have one set of job titles that you qualify for. If you have an AA degree or a BS degree or a master's or even a doctorate degree, it increases exponentially with the number of jobs that you qualify for. For instance, here's an example of high school and some of the job titles that are available. And there's 2 pages worth of job titles. You can be a firefighter. You can be a key entry operator, which I supervised. Um, Mail machines operator, because there's a lot of mail that comes through the state of California. So there's many different jobs available. Most of them are entry level, which is good. And then after a couple of years of experience, you can promote further up the ladder. 2-year degree will net you an additional amount of jobs. These are a little more advanced. 2-year degree, more professional. And then if you have a 4-year degree or higher, you can actually get hired by the state for these job titles. If you have a 4-year degree, you qualify for staff service analyst or for associate governmental program analyst. I'll be talking about that during our presentation. So there's 6 pages of that. Now I did the slow torturous method where I worked during the day hours, 40 hours plus, and then in the evenings I took Sac State classes, 1 and 2 classes a semester, and it was taxing, but it was rewarding too when I got that degree. It opened up a whole new set of doors for me. So what we're going to be covering today are the 3 steps within the exam process. So initially we'll talk about getting started with setting up your account and then being able to log in at your convenience. The second step, we'll talk about the civil service exam process. And then the third step, we'll be talking about search and applying for different state jobs. So when you go over to the state of California, the website called calcareers.ca.gov, which is up at the top here, you come up with this screen, and it could be a maze and very discouraging when you look at it and try to go through it. It's kind of intuitive, but it would be helpful if somebody can guide you through it, like myself. So first thing, you want to establish create your account, and then you can log in after that. So when you click on that, you go over to this screen, and initially you set up your account, and it takes you through a series of steps. And then once you have created your account, then you'll have a login account where you have a user ID and also a password to go by. So creating your account, you would also have to fill out a state application electronically through a standard or STD 678 form, which is constantly used as an application for anything you apply for, whether it's an exam or job vacancy that you think you're qualified for. You have up to 10 different templates that you can use, and you go, well, why so many templates? And that's because once you've taken the exam, you are then eligible to apply for different vacancies within the state of California, and you can use these templates as masters or as customizing. And you'll hear my mantra is to customize your application whenever you can. Don't just boilerplate it and send it out. I'll tell you, as a supervisor, I can know the difference between somebody who has read the job description or duty statements that I've sent out to see who's qualified to apply for my vacant positions to fill it and who I would be interviewing during that time. And the people I'm going to interview for are those who customize the application to include key words, key functions, and key skills that I'm looking for in a candidate. All right, so when you go through the application, there'll be areas of history, employment history, and also levels of education that you should include. Now, when you're going through the job bulletins, there's something called specifications, and that it goes into some detail, and part of the detail is minimum qualifications. So whenever you take an exam, always look at those minimum qualifications because you're not applying for a particular position, you're applying for the exam. And as applying for it, you need to meet the minimum qualifications. A lot of it has to do with experience, education, knowledge, skills, abilities, and your talents. And all that could be applied towards the state application or standard 678 form. Even volunteer service that you've done in the past can also be included in this because sometimes with us being laid off and we're trying to not only find a job, but maybe we're volunteering for services, that could fill in some of the blanks where you might be questioned about, well, why haven't you worked for so long, especially with COVID hanging around. Okay, and I would suggest when you're looking at your qualifications, look at the duty statement or the job announcement or job opportunity. And on the one side of a T chart, list all the things that they are looking for in a candidate. And then on the other side of the T, list all those things that you can match up with your qualifications. That's a good way to fill out the application form. And also they give you clues on what kind of questions they're going to ask once you get scheduled for a job interview, once you start searching for a job with the state. Mentioned something about customizing your application. Haven't said it enough. I'll say it more. All right. So here's the application standard 678 form. It's a state of California application. Typical things that you would see on a resume or a private sector application. So your name, your address, information for contacts. Also in this section here, make sure if you're applying for the state of California jobs, a lot of times they put down the position number. And if you would, put down that position number in this box here. And also what your qualifications are in many cases. And also the job title as it mentions here. So when a person gets this, they can go, oh, okay, this is what you're applying for, and it will help narrow things down for you. If you do not put something in there that identifies the job or the job listing or position number, they're a little lost as to what you're applying for. And oftentimes it'll go in the round file in the trash. Okay, here's the section here on making sure you fill out your name again in case that sheet gets lost. They can match it up again with your name, your last name, first name, and information here. In your education, you have high school to say yes or no. Fill out any college courses you've taken or degrees that you've earned and how many units, whether it's semester or quarterly units, and what degree you received and what period of time or date that you graduated. Certifications or licenses that you received down here. All those are important as far as filling in the minimum qualifications. Excuse me. Employment history is pretty much this, to from dates, the title of the position you were with, who supervised you, what company or state agency were you working for, and contact information that acts as a form of contact or reference. Put down, and I would suggest if you're going for a position that requires writing, like an analyst position or supervisory, you may want to do paragraphical form in this section. If you're going for a technical position like IT or trades, like building supervisor or something, you might want to put bullets. There's a controversy as to whether put out paragraphical experiences or bullet experiences. Any questions about that? Okay, moving on.
We do have one question about the SOQ, but I think Bjorn is going to cover it in the next hour. So I just sent a link. So I think you're good to continue.
Okay, that is a very prevalent thing that occurs when you're applying for different vacancies and you're filling out your state application. Oftentimes they'll say, well, what are your qualifications? And so the statement of qualifications is used. To my way of thinking, it's a way of getting rid of window shoppers that are just kind of contemplating it, but don't want to go the extra mile in filling out the statement of qualifications. By doing that, that opens the door that much more towards getting a job interview.
Is there any chance we could see that high school, that first page of the high school, um,
That
The job titles?
yeah,
Yeah.
the first page. Okay, yeah. If I can take a quick picture.
sure.
Thank you, sir.
I have
Appreciate it.
that, and here's the second page to that.
Yeah, I was able to get the second page. I just missed the first page. Thank you very much.
Gotcha.
Sorry.
Excuse me. Let's see. Oops. Okay. All right. So we're going on to the second step, taking civil service exams. Part of the reason they're using exams, and you go, why in the world would they do that? It's because back in the 70s and earlier, there was a lot of nepotism going on where people were hiring their brother, their sister, their mother, their father, their aunt, their uncles. And it got so prevalent that they had to establish some sort of set of more evenly way of evaluating people's performance and qualifications. So that's why they went, and you used to have to go into a high school gym or auditorium to take the test physically in that location. And now it's online, which is a real blessing. And they've had that going on probably for the last, I would say, what, 10, 15 years, I would say. So, and so we'll be covering this, and then we'll be covering search and applying for different state jobs. Okay, so let me address any veterans that are here. Thank you for your service. I myself served in the Navy back during Vietnam period. SB Senate Bill 112 established the California Veterans Bill of Rights, honoring veterans and giving them some special what do you say, special benefits for having served in the military. If you apply as a veteran towards a particular job title exam, if you pass with 70% or higher as a veteran, certified veteran, you automatically get elevated to 95% or first rank. And the way you qualify for that as a veteran is the veteran status is that you would apply through the California Veteran Affairs Office or VA office. You would give them your DD 214, which is your honorable discharge. VA will validate your military service and pass that on to Cal Careers. And so any future exams that you would take would elevate you to 95% or the equivalent of the first rank. Also, veterans, they also have what they call a VetNet program at EDD, Employment Development Department. It has a special set of representatives that help the veterans out in training them and also in employing them through some special incentives for the employer. So that additionally helps you. So any questions about that, veterans?
What about LEAP? I know it's not a question about the veterans, but
You mean this?
the LEAP
Yep,
program for
the LEAP
disabled,
program. I knew that question was going to come up. All right. So persons with disability status can go through the Department of Rehabilitation with their medical doctor validation of their disability, and that could be physical, mental, emotional, and it's LEAP, as you mentioned, is a limited examination and appointment program, which is an entry level into many of the different positions like office assistant, office technician, program technician, which are stepping stones towards actually going into the analytical classification. As a LEAP qualified person, you would take the exam, you would have to rate it at least 70% or higher in order to elevate to rank 1. It's up to you at that point to get a job interview and to pass the interview for them to consider hiring you. Online exams are only you can only qualify for open exams. Promotional exams are not allowed because you haven't been hired by the state yet. Once you start applying for different positions that are open, then your ranking becomes very important. If you're in the first, second, or third rank, and that's why you need, when you take the exam and you push that submit button, it'll give you a score and a ranking. Take a picture of that, make prints of that, and then anytime you're challenged about your qualifications, show them that screen print or that printout, because that's really important. It goes away after 2 or 3 days, and you won't see it ever again, and your ranking could possibly change depending on the job title that you're applying for at on the website or online exams. So passing it allows you to be eligible. And then as soon as you're eligible, don't wait for them to contact you. Go out, start searching for a job as soon as possible, and apply for different positions that you think you're qualified for. If you're in the lower ranks, say rank 4, 5, 6, or lower, there's still hope. There's positions that are part-time or intermittent or limited term where a lot of people in first 1, 2, or 3 ranks would not be interested in limited amount of time working for the state of California. However, that does allow the state to dip lower in the rankings to people who are qualified still, but they're interested more in part-time, intermittent, limited term. And I'll kind of cover those later on in the presentation.
and if you show us how to look for LEAP jobs?
I will not. I just wanted to share with you that this exists. I've got a limited amount of time here to
Okay.
present. So
We will have a
I'm
representative from DOR here at 1 o'clock today, and you can set up a meeting with them to talk about those specifics as well.
Oh,
Thank
cool.
you.
Okay.
Yes, and we do have a couple of questions really quick, Fred, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
The first is, how do you check old scores from exams?
You can't. It's constantly changing with these online exams. So that's why you need to take a snapshot of it at the time you submit, and it reveals what your score and your ranking is.
And also helps you remember the date you took it, so you stay within that 1 year period.
I always tell my son who just started working, make sure you document everything that you do. He brings in like $8,000 to $10,000 each day, And I told them document how much time that you spent there and how much money that you were responsible for.
And then we had a question about declaring mental health in particular as a disability. And they're wondering the pros and cons. Perhaps you can address that more one-on-one in the chat later, or did you want to address it?
Real fast on that one. The reason they have the LEAP program is to assist people who have some form of disability that would have to be recognized through the Department of Rehabilitation, and they would look at the doctor's documentation for that. So I'm not sure what else to say about that. It's a form of being able to not have this recognized as uh, a hiring prevention or um, what do I want to say? I'm not going to say it. Okay, I'm just going to
No,
leave
you're
it.
good. I think that's good. It's really a personal decision, I think, whether or not you want to declare it. But the LEAP certification, as far as I know through DOR, is it just puts you on the LEAP list. So I don't know that your private information about why you're on LEAP would be shared with an agency. You would just be part of LEAP.
Well, you have HIPAA, which protects your health uh, information. And although Department of Rehabilitation has to make that decision, and that's something that you have to determine whether you want to go in the LEAP area because it does label you as a potentially disabled person. But I've hired disabled people, and I'll tell you, they're some of my best workers.
Well, once you are LEAP, then you don't have to renew that through the DOR.
No, you don't.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
No, that's all right.
All right, you're good. I think you're good to continue, Fred.
Cool. All right. All right. So we get back to this web page now. Now we're going to get a state job, and they're redundant. They have it up here that you can click on, or you can have it down here where they click on it. So either one you click on, this is what you're going to come up with. It'll say get a state job, and I point out 3 different areas that you can research out. This one's on the examination process. This one's geographical by counties. And this one I think is really good. Once you've qualified and taken the exam and you've passed it and you're eligible for applying for different vacant positions, this has a really great filtering system to help narrow down what you're interested in and what you're looking for. So you can do a kind of a basic search here, but if you don't hit the keyword that the system's looking for, it could take you off on a rabbit trail. So I kind of discourage you from using this this particular window for search. I would use one of the other 3. Now I kind of favor geographical, so I'm going to go over there for the bigger picture. So I'm going to click on it. When I do, I come up with these 58 counties, and if of course the picture's kind of small, so numbers are small, but you see over here that there's 400 or 4,569 jobs that are vacant at this particular point in time. If you were to look at that today or tomorrow, it'll change. But this is a phenomenal amount of vacant positions they have. I suspect the state workers are reaching a level of retirement, and so there's many vacancies that are coming up, more so than the typical vacancies. So for instance, down here in Los Angeles, there's 263 vacancies. That's quite a bit. If you were to go to a smaller county, and so I'm going to pick your brain here, Sarah. What are the areas of interest to you?
I always look at the outskirts because I think the assumption is that there are lots of state jobs in Sacramento. So I will pull jobs from Alpine County, from Placer County, and from El Dorado County so that my commute is shorter.
Okay, so
So I would
Placer
pick one
County
of
has,
those three.
Placer County has about 18 state jobs. Alpine has about 4 jobs. So not very many, but if you live in those areas, then you have less competition per se, instead of somebody that has to travel from Sacramento to Alpine each workday. So that's kind of how it works. I would look at Sacramento because there's 1,574 vacancies. That's a lot of vacancies if you live in the Sacramento or greater Sacramento area. If you live down in Southern California, Riverside, Kern County, Kings have quite a few vacancies as well. So I just wanted to give you a kind of a bigger picture on this if you want to narrow it down. So if I were to click on Sacramento County with its 1,574 positions, I would see um, different job titles. If I scroll down here, I would click on this here, which is group jobs by classification. And if I do that, it brings up all the job titles in alphabetical order. So it's much easier to search. Initially, it's kind of randomized. And when you click this button, it gets very specific. Okay. And looking at this, I would go down to, let's say, and as I went down through here, there's like 1 position, 13 positions with the account trainee, 10 positions, accounting administrator, 1 supervisor. So I would look at the larger number of positions that might give you more opportunities to apply for that particular job title and responsibilities. If I go down a little further, here's the Associate Governmental Program Analyst, which is profusely used throughout the state of California and used in many variety of different ways. Just because the title is that doesn't mean the duties coincide with all the other AGPA positions that are there. Currently, there's 201 positions available. If you're interested in HR, here's Associate Personnel Analyst, which I was for about 5 years with the state. There's 13 positions available at that time. IT, information technology, there's these different job titles, and it comes up to, if I were to add all these up, there's 268 vacant positions for IT. I was up to a manager 2 level.
Recording in progress.
Let's see. Okay, so looking at the exam process, so I would
Brad?
click over here. Yes.
I'm going to ask a quick question in regards to the change that has happened with people working from home and the opportunity to do so with the state. Do you have any understanding or updates as to what that would entail when applying for a variety of different jobs, and what is the possibility to get a state job and work remotely?
It's pretty good. Thanks to COVID, there are some physical requirements. It has to be in a house, not a barn or a garage, where the temperatures can be extreme. It has to be a convenient, hospitable place. The equipment has to be equivalent to what the state has to offer, which you can probably get by with because the state is never on the cutting edge of technology. They're kind of a little further back on the wave than that. So if you have a personal computer and you're able to do websites type stuff where you're doing web surfing and that sort of thing, you're probably qualified for the kind of equipment that you have. You want to make sure you have a good camera, good audio system in case they have meetings. They may ask you to physically come into the office maybe once or twice a week. And you may end up sharing an office space with somebody else who comes in on other days of the week. So you're not bumping into each other. So you may share an office space. Is that okay? Anyway, that's kind of what you'd be looking for. Other questions? Okay, moving on. All right. So
Sorry, how long does it take if I apply for a job? How long does it actually take till you get hired? Because I heard you have to wait like for years, but some people get in a month, right? I mean, how long does it really take?
that's a tough one. I would say on the average, with the job seekers that we've run through Job One program, it could take an average, and of course we've got 3 state workers who have almost 100, well, over 100 years worth of work experience with the state of California. So when we coach them, we suggested certain ways to fill out applications and statement of qualifications and things like that. So they kind of step up. We also encourage them to look at departments if they get a job interview opportunity, that they look at the state, get very detailed on understanding the manuals that they use. In other words, you want to look like a duck, sound like a duck, and quack like a duck. When you're working for the state of California, you have to do that because you're coming in from the outside as a stranger. And the more you can talk their language, converse with them, the more likely it is that you're going to be hired sooner than if you tried to do it on your own.
And I will say, Bjorn will cover more of that too on the hiring timelines, but it really does depend on department and job title. Some take longer just because of the nature of the job. Whereas if it was like a Caltrans position or the jobs they just hired for the state fair, those are quick turnarounds because they're either seasonal or temporary. And so that's a really good way to get into the state hiring system and to get some state experience, which then helps you with those more permanent positions. And correct me if I'm wrong, Fred, it takes, you need to be with a certain position for a year before you transfer to a different state agency or a different county location.
I would suggest you pass your probation, whether it's 6 months or 12 months, before you start looking around for another position to transfer over to. If you don't pass your probation, you don't have a right of return back to your former position, even though you got promoted to another one and for some reason they laid you off or it wasn't a good fit. You would have right of return to that former position that you qualified for through passing the 6 or 12-month probation. And on the average, it takes anywhere from 2 to 3 months. But when I was a supervisor and we had hiring freezes, you never knew from day to day whether they were going to say, now you got to cancel everything. Well, that means all the stuff I did to prepare for the actual job interviews, actually doing job interviews. Anyway, it's kind of a bad topic to bring up. My eyes start twitching.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, yeah, it could take an average, but it depends on your preparation, how you look during a job interview. In some cases, they may end up having you come back in 2 and possibly 3 times. We had one person that went in for 10 job interviews for one position. They went through the first, they cut that. They went through the second one, they passed that. They went to the third one and so on. And each one went to a higher level and a higher set of managers that were overseeing them. This particular position was extremely important to them as far as interfacing with different vendors and such. So it required more looking at the person's qualification. She ended up getting the job, which she really appreciates because it's right up her alley. So, all right. So when you click on that button, you come over here to the exam assessment search. And I chose the Associate Governmental Program Analyst, the generalist, and then you set as search down here at the button on the bottom. And then when you come up with this exam, and there's a published date and so it's been around since 2009. Probably revised, I would assume, because it's been around a lot longer. This is until filled, which is a really good thing. Instead of final filing date, that might be somewhat more recent that you'd have to qualify for. Anything that says until filled means that they're waiting for the right candidate, and that could be you if you file for it. So that's great. Okay, so once you click on this button here, it takes you over to the exam posting, and you'll go down to here to look at their classification description, which is important because you need to find out what the minimum qualifications are, if I haven't said that before. Okay, so you click on that, and it'll take you over to the official exam bulletin. They're lying to you. It's not really. It's pretty close to it. So if I click on this, what I'm aiming for is going over to the 6th page. Currently, here's the exam. It's that title. You could look at the classification specifications for that AGPA position. I would scroll down a little further, and here's the minimum qualifications. So in this case, you would have to have education year for year. So if you have a 4-year degree, you get 4 years of credit towards qualifying for the AGPA. And you have to look at all these things. Here's the education portion. And if you look, well, let's say you have 3 years in. Well, okay, it says either this 1 year and experience performing the duties of a staff service analyst, which is 1 step lower than the AGPA at the range C level, and you look at 3 years of professional experience. So you may be able to have 3 years with towards graduate from college, but you may also have some professional experience related to analytical work, which would fall in the different categories, either in budgets and management analysis or personnel planning, evaluation, or policy analysis. And so you could possibly qualify under that. So don't just look at what the qualifications are here. There could be some additional qualifications that you can meet that would qualify you. And if they come back and say, well, you still don't qualify, find out why you don't qualify. And if you think you can still qualify by sharing with them some additional information, by all means do so. Don't consider a no a no. A lot of people throw their hands up in the air when they get that rejection letter, and don't let it bother you too much. If you think you have the qualifications, go back to the minimum qualifications, because that's all you need to take the exam. Make sense? Okay. Okay, so as I scroll down further, I see something, and I'm going to emphasis. It says important, and you notice it's in big letters, caps. Take the preview exam first. Click on this. It will take you over to this, which is, from what I've been told, is exactly the type of questions they're going to be asking you on the real exam. So take this first. It looks like the qualifications of experience, and they'll ask you these questions, and you'll have to rate it based on this. A is, or whatever it is, 1 is 3+ years, 2 to 3 years, 1 to 2 years, 6 months to 1 year. If you can qualify under this, this will give you the higher score, but make sure you don't lie about it. I would say you can squeak a little bit. Let's say it's 6 months and a day. So I would kind of say, I think I can qualify by saying it's almost 3 years, but be careful with that one. I would say just be honest through it, because they will follow up and check. Where they find these number of years is on the state application that you filled out initially, and education as well. And so that's where they find the information. They also want to find out what tasks you've done, whether it's been at an expert level or independent level or direct level or non-performed. So all these will be evaluated based on the information you provide with each of these questions. In this case, there's 28 questions. So when you go to the real exam, there'll be close to 28 questions there. So do the pre-test beforehand. Okay, then go down a little bit further, and here's the real exam. So make sure you take your notes and take them to the exam online. Nobody's going to look over your shoulder to see what kind of notes you're taking, but whatever you put down for the pre-exam will most likely apply to the real exam. So you have to pass with a 70% or higher. The higher the score, and the max you can get is 95%. Okay, the main concern is ranking. Make sure you find out whether you're in first, second, or third rank. If you're the fourth rank or lower, you can qualify in 12 months to take the examination again. They figure that in a year's time, you may gain additional experience that could be applied towards answering the questions on the exam. So print out or screen print and save it someplace for future consideration and review. As I mentioned, it changes almost on a daily basis because there's so many people taking the exam, it could change. And you can have maybe 100 people in rank 1, 200 people in rank 2, and 150 people in rank 3. So there could be a lot of people. There are some exams where it's one person, one rank, and one person, second rank, one person, third rank. So that can happen. Okay, and I did mention hiring could take anywhere from 2 to 4 months because of the circumstances and how well you prepared during the job interview. By the way, I do a job interview topic at Job 1. Okay, so by clicking on the real exam, they take you through a series of steps that you have to do. Check the boxes for qualifications, and then they take the exam. And once you're ranked, you can start going back into the application part to start filling out the state application, the standard 678 form, and start applying for different positions. And as I mentioned, you have up to 10 templates that you can use. All right, so now that you've qualified on a list, here's where the adventure begins. Okay, so now we're going through the third step, where search and apply for state jobs. I would suggest the advanced search in this case. So go over here, click on this, and you come up with this, advanced job search. Okay, so the first one here is departments. There's 150 different departments if you want to list them all. If you want to work for a particular department that you're in favor, you have a better interest in or qualified for. You may have a relative that works there or a friend or it just has real interest for you, let's say for law enforcement. Okay, and then you come down to, I wouldn't suggest the job code because they change and it's not necessarily applicable. I would jump down to the job categories, and there's only 22 job categories. It's very, very, very general. So if I was in building areas, this would be buildings and grounds for like janitorial or outdoor gardening for state agencies, to put in flowers. If you've ever been downtown, you have 2 Grecian buildings across the street from the state capitol, and you have a fountain circular fountain driveway that goes around the Grecian buildings. And there's people who work for the state that do that kind of work. Classification, I would go here to start with, if you know what job title it is. And it's in alphabetical order, so you go skipping down through there. For instance, I went to Associate Governmental Program Analyst. You can go to Information Technician, whatever you qualify for, and look that up. You just click on the button and then click on the job title. Keep going down. So the location, there's 58 different counties in which that's where the geographical button would be handy to push to find out what jobs are most available in those counties. Some counties like Alpine only had 4 vacancies at this particular time. There's other times when they may have more or less, depending on the timing.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
About the, when you go to, because I've been on here, job category for like custodian, when you go to classification, and there's so many of them, how would you, or for like, I got a high school diploma and I'm on the LEAP thing. So like I qualify for custodian or maybe office assistant general. How would you know what classification those are?
Well, by the job title, it's pretty descriptive.
So custodian would be in, you would just type in the classification
Well,
would be,
custodian is not their job title. You would look under janitorial.
oh,
And
for the,
use
for
that
the
as a
classification.
keyword. Pardon?
So janitorial for the custodian position under classification.
Yes.
Fred, can I step in here?
Sure.
This is Bjorn. So it's custodian 1 is the state classification
Oh,
that you would want to search. I think there's also a custodian for the prison authority, but you would want to just do custodian 1 for the exam and then also searching through the classification. That's the classification, custodian 1. And I'm actually going to highlight, I'm the next presenter. I'll talk about some of those positions in the next hour.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
thank you. All right. Okay, so counties, location. Okay, and then when the jobs were posted. And I would say anything over 60 days is probably not worth your time in filling out the applications, because there's a good chance that somebody forgot to take it off the list of vacancies, or they may have some financial budgetary issues with it. I would say on the average, I would probably go every 7 days because they renew these things almost on a day-by-day basis. So for review. Okay, next one is work schedule. You can have either permanent, which means you're permanent with the state of California. Now, when I say permanent, you could be under probation, and probation is an extension of the examination process, from what I understand from that. So you still would have to serve, say, 6 months or possibly 12 months probation before, once you pass, you are permanent. I try to get somebody out of the position once they had already passed probation, and it was extremely difficult to do that because they were already considered permanent. Limited term is just that. You can work up to 12 months and with a possible extension of an additional 12 months. So that's possible, but there's no guarantees of that if they like what they do. The state was using limited term for budgetary reasons to determine that if we put them permanent, they would have all the rights and benefits. Whereas if it was limited term, they could terminate the person at any particular time, even less than 12 months of a commitment. Retired, you'd have to be a retired annuitant. Once you've retired, the state could hire you back because of special qualifications or knowledge that you have. Non-tenured would be just that. It's just something that would be hourly rate or contracted. Okay, and then full-time, as far as the time base and salary range, full-time would be 40 hours per week, and you get paid on a monthly basis. So discipline yourself to get paid once a month. And then there's part-time, and usually you get under full-time you get full benefits. However, on part-time you may or may not qualify for benefits. That depends on the human resources and consideration whether they work 40 plus hours per week or not. Intermittent would be up to 1,500 hours or less per year that you can work. And then retired unit, as I mentioned, is a former state worker who retired and would be rehired. All right, you can search by salaries if you're interested in a certain salary range, like you maybe have been a consultant. This is one way to determine what job titles are available based on the salary ranges. Analyticals, somewhere around 6,000 to 8,000. All right, the way you can file is electronically now, whereas I used to have to go down to the post office and stand in line and have them stamp the date prior to the final filing date and send it out. They go by the postmark date, so make sure you get it postmarked on or before the date that it's due, and they'll say final filing or finally deadline on the job announcement to determine that. You can drop it off, and sometimes they'll ask you to drop it off. I actually had a friend who had to go down to Fresno to drop off her application and be interviewed the next day. It was one of those very short notices. She got down there, she found a hotel for the night, and then went to the next day to drop it off, and she was interviewed the same day. All right, so my presentation's done. Any questions?